But it's been my experience that those quiet backroom conversations, not the public speeches, are the places where most change happens. I understand that you had an opportunity, many of us now know who Jeff Flake is. I understand you had an opportunity to influence a very significant vote of his. And would you describe that a little bit, about that private conversation and how it played out publicly?
And I feel comfortable talking about it now because actually his son was interviewed for a major article on why his dad, voted for, at that time it was an inclusive ENDA in the Senate. And so his son kind of told this story, but I had served with Jeff Flake in the House of Representatives, and we had both been elected in the same year to the United States Senate. And I knew that he had voted for ENDA, but a non-inclusive, so it didn't include gender identity, in the House. But I had also heard that he was very much wavering on taking the same action in the United States Senate because the bill had been it was inclusive of gender identity protections also. And I happen to know, and this is actually also from the backroom conversations, that when I was in the House and I was counting votes, I was always counting and speaking with both Democrats and Republicans. And I had run into a colleague, a Republican colleague in the House, who told me about their transgender child, and confessed, even though we didn't know each other very well, that he hadn't told many of his colleagues, Democrat or Republican, that one of his children was transgender. But he said, I will absolutely be with you on ENDA. And at the time, I was trying to make the House bill inclusive. When I was watching Jeff Flake struggle with this vote and hearing that he was likely to vote no, I called up my former colleague in the House and said, would you be willing to have a private conversation if I can persuade Jeff to give you a call? And he said, absolutely, anything I can do. And so I gave a little piece of paper to Jeff with his phone number, and I said, as you're making your final decision, please don't make it until you talk to your old friend, your old colleague. And so Jeff made the call and was persuaded, not from me, but from one of his former Republican colleagues, that he had to do the right thing. And I still remember getting a text from him like the next morning going, I spoke with former colleague, I'm voting for this, don't ever do this to me again. Which he didn't mean the way it sounds, but just sort of like, I don't want to have to go through such a huge emotional...
That didn't last very long, did it?
And so, yes, those conversations, I would have probably never spoken about it publicly until he decided to, to go public with this conversation. But yeah, you can learn a lot